Candlelight vigil in the streets of that ancient town where Christ was born. Then there's New Year's Eve in Jerusalem, where tonight Christmas pilgrims have gathered at the Mount of Olives. Some to pray, some to celebrate, some who say they are awaiting the arrival of the Messiah. NBC's Martin Fletcher is there and joins us now. Martin?
Tom, after so many fears of terrorist attacks or mass suicides came to nothing, a day of peace here and great relief. But there were no great celebrations either. Meanwhile, the few Christian tourists who did come to celebrate the Millennium gathered here on the biblical Mount of Olives. This is where Christians believe Jesus spent his last days before his betrayal. And from here, they say, he ascended to heaven. So for many faithful tonight, it was a pilgrimage into the new millennium, in the footsteps of Jesus.
To do that now in this particular moment, it just is something very profound.
The faithful planting a cross at midnight, marking 2,000 years of Christian history. So far, the Israeli government's special Millennium headquarters is as quiet as the rest of the country. No trouble at all so far, no terrorism, and no Y2K problems either. But with continuing terrorist threats against Israel and millions of Christians expected to visit the Holy Land in the year 2000, tonight is merely a quiet start to what promises to be a busy and uneasy year. Tom?
Thanks very much. NBC's Martin Fletcher tonight in Jerusalem. I'll be right back from here in Times Square, the latest on the countdown to Y2K.
On a special Millennium Dateline, the future is almost here. Homes that listen, cars that fly, and amazing medical breakthroughs. A special Dateline tonight, 8/7 Central.
You're looking live once again at the crowds who have gathered in Times Square. It could reach 2 million people before midnight tonight. Obviously, they're not worried about terrorism or Y2K computer bugs. In fact, in most places around the world where the century has already turned, so far so good for the Y2K bug. No problems whatsoever. Let's go to NBC's Robert Hager now, who's in the Y2K Command Center in Washington, D.C. Bob, does look pretty good, doesn't it?
Sure does, Tom. Already after midnight in 120 countries now, and no problems reported. The cash machines are working, the lights are on, the planes are flying, and no problems with phones other than heavy, heavy calling. Bodes well for the U.S. switchover still to come. So as officials here follow the changeover worldwide, they find Australia, phones here and elsewhere jam from heavy use, but not from Y2K bugs. Japan, American Express and MasterCard monitoring from the U.S. say Asian transactions going through smoothly. Energy Department says nuclear plants make the switchover successfully in Japan, Korea, China, India, Pakistan, and Russia. And in Britain, a hacker breaks into the British Railways computer site, posts a hoax notice that the railroads shut down. Not true. But good news so far, says U.S. Y2K czar John Koskinen.
I think it's too early to declare victory, but we are and continue to be pleased with the ability of systems thus far around the world.
In the U.S., where the Millennium's still ahead, no lines at gas stations, heavy buying at groceries, but no hoarding. Worldwide, then, the only real Y2K-related problems documented so far, a minor power plant outage in Japan that was quickly fixed, and in Delaware, at the racetracks, the slot machines quit suddenly. Fortunately, that, too, fixed quickly, as officials wait now for the midnight hour here in the U.S. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Robert Hager tonight. I'll be right back with a look at Y2K air travel tonight. Lots of fears of air chaos. So far, no difficulties. You continue to look at Times Square here in New York.
Start the Millennium with NBC News.
Some of the biggest Y2 computer fears have centered on air travel, worries that computer glitches would cause air chaos. Well, joining me now from the FAA Control Center in Herndon, Virginia, with how things are going so far tonight, NBC's Bob Kerr. Bob, what's the latest there?
Tom, as you said yourself a few minutes ago, so far so good. They're very optimistic here as the crucial hour of 7 p.m. Eastern Time approaches. It's crucial because 7 p.m. Eastern Time equates to midnight Greenwich Mean Time, and that's when all of the computers that serve air traffic control all over the world make the rollover to the year 2000. They're optimistic because the equipment here and at places like this has either been purchased new this year and also been tested and retested time and again. Also, other computers not related to air traffic control, which serve airports and airlines all over the world, have performed well today right through the changeover to 2000 in other time zones. But let me tell you, Tom, the latest figures given to us by the FAA, and they show a big drop in the number of commercial flights over the United States at this hour compared to last New Year's Eve. 7 p.m. last year, 3,100 commercial flights in the air at this hour. Tonight, 1,350 commercial flights in the air over the U.S., Tom. That's a drop of 60%. It does show some concern among the flying public. But in a show of confidence earlier this evening, FAA Administrator Jane Garvey and Senator Slade Gordon boarded a plane at Reagan National Airport in Washington, and they headed out west. They'll be flying when the switchover comes.
All right, thanks very much, NBC's Bob Kerr tonight. A reminder that in less than 7 minutes now, we'll be going live to London as that capital, that country, celebrates the new millennium. Back after this.
Their vision changed our world. Now look inside their worlds. 20th Century Pioneers on Headliners and Legends with Matt Lauer. Every night this week on MSNBC.
That's Big Ben in London. It's counting down to midnight there now, just about 4 minutes to go. And the capital that has seen so much in the last 1,000 years, the British Empire so dominant for so much of that time, still proud, obviously, and NBC's Ron Allen is there tonight. I almost called you Ben Allen, but you're not Big Ben, you're Ron Allen. You're at the big party at the Dome tonight. They think they're going to outdo everyone over there, don't they, Ron?
That's what they say. They're calling this the biggest party in Europe, Tom. They say this is where the new millennium really begins. Zero longitude, the start of the world's time zones. They spent $10 billion, that's $166 per person, on the most extravagant party in 1,000 years.
The gala gets rolling when Britain's Prime Minister fires a laser to start the Millennium Wheel, the world's tallest Ferris wheel, 450 feet high, built for the occasion and redefining London's skyline. Spectacular lights and fireworks around the wheel, but they mask an embarrassment. No passengers allowed to ride the $30 million wheel because it failed a safety test. The festivities run for miles along the Thames River, Queen Elizabeth II lighting the beacon of hope, the final flame in a chain of torches stretching the entire length of Great Britain. The royal entourage moves on to the Millennium Dome, billed as the largest dome structure in the world, a $1.2 billion exhibition center in London's Greenwich, where world time, Greenwich Mean Time, begins.
Tom, they're expecting 3 million people in central London and along the river. It's getting crazy over here. It's one of the largest crowds on record, and they're now all just waiting for Big Ben to strike midnight. Tom?
And there have been no problems there whatsoever, right?
No, Tom, it's all been very peaceful. There are about 12,000 police officers on duty. It's one of the largest mobilizations of British police that anyone can remember. Huge crowds spread out over a wide area this year. Most of the festivities are usually centered in Trafalgar Square downtown, but now they're using the river. You can hear behind me, it's really getting loud here. The momentum has been building all day. Right here under the wheel, this huge 450-foot high Millennium Wheel, London Eye, whatever you want to call it. It's really been a magnet for huge crowds, poised now, focused at Big Ben, just across the river, waiting for midnight.
Ron Allen, it's been a kind of a competition around the world between these great cities. We saw Sydney and Paris and Hong Kong, Berlin tonight, and then New York, obviously, has been watching all of this on large screens here in Times Square. They're going to be watching with interest as well. There's a kind of populist competition, I suppose, between nations, between cultures about who can celebrate in the grandest and most stylish way. Now Big Ben counts down.